And here we go once again. Heidi has now replied to Holly's initial tweets saying that Holly's Twitter thread is full of lies. She's exaggerating, twisting details, and taking Jared's word on a lot of stuff and running with it. But most importantly, the heart of her argument is, I was just helping my friend leave his awful wife by having sex with him. JT. Here we go with Heidi's response to Holly's damning claims against Heidi as a human being. As far as I can tell, the whole point of these posts is to make me look bad. She's not adding clarity to her decision to secretly sleep with a married man. She's just saying, look how awful his wife was. Now, I need to state something before I go too far in this. My bias, after reading through Holly's tweets previously, it put Heidi in a really bad position, shined a light on a lot of things that were confusing, conflicting, gave people pause for who Heidi even is as a human being. Yes, she was Jared's wife and technically still is currently, but what type of wife was she? We're getting a lot of insight and different reports from a lot of people associated with the situation, and most of the finger pointing is now directed back at Heidi after Holly's most recent Twitter storm. Heidi's defense, to me, is weak, and I'm going to explain why, but I want to first go through it and let you know what she said. As far as my supposed long-term boyfriend goes, she is assuming a lot. During the time Jared and I explored polyamory, I was long-distance messaging someone in another state. I ended that myself when I told Jared that I needed to ask him for monogamy after he'd broken my trust. Okay, that sounds a little self-serving, basically stating that the polyamory came to a mutual decision, even though it seems like that was Heidi's choice. She had a boyfriend and encouraged Jared to find somebody else, and then decided to end that relationship herself, and then when she did that, she wanted Jared to end his with Holly as well. So that's not really fair to Jared from what I'm picking up on this point, but we'll continue. I wanted to leave that person out of this because it's super irrelevant. I took steps to be fully transparent with Jared, make sure he knew he was always my first priority and that he could expect the truth from me. I never had anything to hide from Jared. Period. Nothing I found on Jared's phone was illegally obtained. My lawyer assured me of that. It's community property purchased during our marriage, unlocked in the house. I picked it up and discovered horrifically explicit proof of their ongoing affair that they were lying about. See, here's the thing. He might have been lying about an ongoing affair, but it dates back to when you guys decided to have an open marriage, and then you decided to shut that down and had the assumption that he also would shut that down, which is where I'm getting hung up on all of this. They want to catch me on a technicality, oh, you shouldn't have looked. No one, I don't know anybody that cares about that technicality. I'm grateful I looked. If I hadn't looked, I would have left this marriage crushed, but the belief that what Jared and Holly say about me is true. It's all their excuse for effing. Okay, it sounds like a bitter wife that had things go awry so far. I never pretended to be blameless. What I did say is that I made every effort to communicate with Jared and correct my mistakes. During that time, he was intensely gaslighting me, lying to me, and giving me the silent treatment every time I tried to have an earnest conversation. See, this all stems back from having the open marriage, and one person decided to not have the same trust as the other person, but that kind of thing is going to happen when you open the gates in a marriage. It's kind of like polyamories can work if both parties balance, but it's not something that's normal as far as relationships go, so there's a lot of room for error. What Holly saw and the rest of Jared's friends saw were my frustrations boiling over after days, weeks, months of silent treatment and neglect from Jared. He broadcasted my frustrations and acted like they came from nowhere to support his narrative that I'm a bad person. And that's exactly what Holly's doing now. She opens up talking about how good her intentions are, then devolves into a rambling mess about how I'm a terrible person, and that's the whole point. She's justifying her behavior with a smear campaign. Take that as you will. Here's the thing, Heidi. and Holly and Jared. None of you are even close to being innocent in this. There is so many F-ups between the three of you that it's hard to count. Like, literally, every step along the way, I can name 5 different things that each person did wrong, which is why it ended up in the situation that it's in right now. The biggest problem I'm finding with all of this is a lack of accountability on anybody's part. At this point, the entire situation has devolved into a Twitter storm mess of throwing crap at each other and trying to clean themselves off before the next onslaught of crap comes from the person. And instead of accountability and saying, here's what I did wrong, here's who I am as a human being, and here's where I messed up, and here's why I feel like I wasn't entirely the problem, everyone is just so quick to point fingers at each other. And the problem I'm having with Heidi is a lot of what Holly said came across as very truthful, and she backed it up with statements. Now, Heidi does talk about these statements here. Can you elaborate a bit more on this conversation, please? And this is the, oh, you can have full permission to do anything you want. Yep, this was my first ever initial attempt to be supportive. I discovered that they were not capable of being honest with me in spite of my unwavering support. 'Cause look at me, I am perfect and I wanted everything to go right. That's how I read that. That was deeply hurtful, so I stopped trusting them and asked it to stop. She's distracting you. No. Take some accountability here, Heidi. You basically told a dude to do whatever he wants with another girl, and then you want to reel it back in when you see it's working out. And you can't do that. When you squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't just put it right back in. I mean, it goes with that old saying that once you let the cat out of the bag, it's gone. You can't reel that in like you're trying to, and you're blaming everybody else for your decision to have an open marriage and allow Jared to see other people. That's clear as day to me right now. This is the aftermath of that night when I tried to be supportive and they ignored me for hours. I went to bed sobbing, thinking Jared was hooking up with her without ever acknowledging me. You had an open relationship. You told him to see whoever he wants and he's free to do whatever he wants with that person. What do you think is going to happen when you say that to someone in a relationship? If it's not going well, they're going to find somebody else to seek whatever they're missing in the relationship that they presently have. For a woman who's claiming to be mentally abused by her significant other, she certainly lays down a lot of rules, has a lot of expectations, and gets extremely angry when those are not met. Especially when you pair those with some of the other thoughts she's had concerning the entire thing. I'm starting to suspect that Heidi isn't as innocent as I first thought. Here are the texts between Holly and Heidi. Hey Heidi, I'm so sorry for all the lost sleep and upsetting SHIT that happened this weekend. I want to apologize in any way I can for the crapness I brought to you. I get so scared that you hate me because you're so nice and pretty, and I know that's stupid, but that's why I was afraid to talk at. And I know Jared has told you everything, so you know how effed up I am, LOL. I'm also sorry I didn't say bye, and I hope we can talk more and still be friends. That seems like a really nice message from Holly, like a legitimate person trying to make things right after the wife had let her husband see somebody else. And here's Heidi responding. Hey Holly, I don't know if Jared told you this, but probably the only confronted your emotions is that I literally demanded it of him. I approached him earlier that day and insisted that he finally address the tension growing between you two because it was incredibly obvious to me and I was tired of playing dumb, being treated like I'm stupid. I intentionally stayed out of the way, gave you space to let things play out. I've been so open and supportive to Jared about all of this, and in return, he lied, denied, and left me hanging for hours without a word of acknowledgement. Here's the thing, accountability, like I said. Jared is not innocent here. Holly is not innocent here. But Heidi, you are kind of implicating yourself here as some crazed lunatic that is chasing after her husband after she said her husband can go see other people. That doesn't come across really well to the end user who's witnessing all this, and it's kind of funny that the proof that you are posting here is kind of implicating yourself in proving that point. I know it was an accident, you forgot the phones, but it resulted in one of the most emotionally eviscerating experiences I've ever had. I'm really sorry. If there's anything I can do for you, please tell me. All I want is transparency and honesty from you both, and I'm going to need a lot more than what either of you have given me so far. So Heidi is coming across as someone who is extremely jealous. After she allowed Jared to go find somebody else and he found happiness while they were married, she is jealous. And in her jealous fit of rage, she started manipulating and attacking Jared and Holly. That clear as day right here. And you're right, I know what's happening now, and that's made it a lot easier for me to process. And honestly, that's because you had bigger balls than either of us, and I'm just completely lacking in emotional experience. Anything you want to talk about or ask me, please do. I'll tell you whatever you, and that cuts off, but whatever you want to know, probably. I literally didn't know what any of this SHIT was until now, and I'm so sorry it took me so long, and it's cut off. That's the end of what she's posted. So, Holly comes across as someone who is extremely apologetic for ProJared and Holly getting together. I don't know if there's even been proof of a relationship beyond walking together and holding hands, but Heidi seems to be convinced that was happening, and maybe it was. Regardless of the after effects of them getting together, it shouldn't even matter, because Heidi opened up the relationship at first, and like I said, once you open that up, you can't put it back in. It's done. The relationship, if you can't trust one another, it was already on a rocky road to begin with, which is why it was opened up in the first place, for you to see somebody else because you weren't finding happiness with Jared. And then once you found out that that person you were seeing wasn't really working out, you tried to come back to Jared, but you opened up the relationship for Jared to see someone else. He found happiness with Holly, and now you're pissed off that it worked out for him and not you when you opened up the relationship. That is what this is coming down to. Let's see what some people are responding to Heidi with here. Here's the thing. Don't let your husband F other women. Exactly. You a crazy bitch. Victim card expired. Polyamory never works, folks. When you cheat, it's all cool and fine, but it's not so much fun when it's done to you, is it? I mean, I've heard some people say that they have open relationships in their marriages and they work perfectly fine because they have an open, honest communication and trust with each other. Clearly, that wasn't the case with Holly and Jared, but that's one of the consequences when you decide to open up your relationship. You have to trust the other person, and if that doesn't work out, you can't blame them because you wanted it to be an open relationship in the first place. Why do you guys keep putting it out in the open? Keep these messages private and move on. Exactly. I've lived in constant blame, neglect, lies, and anxiety for a year while my husband insisted none of this was happening and our marriage was failing because I was just a bad person. Sounds like playing the victim card, but okay. Going public was the most liberating experience I've had, and I don't regret it. Okay, but she also completely exposed and destroyed her husband's career after she opened up her marriage. People who say to me now, stop talking about it, don't realize that this has been an ongoing private hell. Talking about it's the only relief and peace I've felt in a long, long time. If you don't want to see me talk about it, you're welcome to peace out. No hard feelings. Jared and Holly vilified me among all their friends for a year, isolating me to help suppress their own guilt over their affair. Now they're doing it publicly on Twitter. This just sounds like a victim card the whole time. Hey everyone, please feel bad for me because I was Jared's wife and they had an affair while I was married and they weren't being honest to me. You opened up your relationship and told him to see other people and he was free to do it. You can't just reel that back and say no now. That's like complete polar opposites. That's not fair to Jared. That's not fair to Holly. I mean, Holly and Ross is a whole nother situation. And that's why I say everyone has a lot of blame here. But stop playing the victim card. This is like who can play the bigger victim card every time there's a new update. So yeah, I'm going to keep responding to their lies. I don't have anything to hide and I don't need time to come up with a story. I'm ready to share my truth. Well, here's the thing, Heidi. Holly shared your messages and you came off like a crazed psycho. I never expected anyone to believe me to begin with. They had so much social power over me from the very start. But you did preempt the situation and expose ProJared, and a lot of other things leaked out before he was able to respond. So in his defense, you kind of had a leg up from the get-go on this. I've been manipulated by them for a long time and made to feel as awful as she says I am. I overcame that through therapy, positive coping mechanisms, channeling my frustrations into productivity, pursuing new goals. My only intention is to start a new life away from them. One last thing, if you think I orchestrated this for personal gain, keep in mind that I stood a lot to gain financially by keeping quiet. I chose to come forward because my peace of mind is worth more than all the money he could ever give me. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of money, but the other angle someone could take is if you're a vindictive person, you would stop at nothing to ruin their life. No money would change that. If you had this idea in your head that ProJared is such an evil, evil person, then you would stop at nothing to destroy it. And those texts that Holly shared between you and Jared about how you wanted to destroy his channel and his meetups, the D&D, all that stuff, that really exposed you for someone who was teetering on the edge of crazy. Thank you. To legally cover my bases, I didn't specifically bring the underage allegations against him. I just suspected he was being inappropriate with fans. But yes, those allegations are public now, and he would have faced the consequences regardless of if I'd said anything. Which is interesting because on Heidi's Tumblr, from 2 years ago, as I referenced in a previous video, Anonymous asked, I know you aren't bothered by Jared's obsession with nudes, which is great because it's funny, but are you bothered if people actually send him nudes? No, he shows them to me, and we high-five about it. So this is her openly admitting that she is well aware of the nudes between Jared and his fans, and she high-fives about it. But then in her tweet, she says, I just suspected he was being inappropriate with fans, but those allegations are public now, and he would have faced the consequences regardless if I'd said anything. Just interesting how she pretends to be an observer when she was knee-deep in this in their relationship. So I find that very hard to believe, but it is what it is. When you say you suspected he was being appropriate, what do you think he was doing? When I found the text messages between them, they were discussing interactions with fans as though it was a current event. That was just context clue though, not proof. When I asked him directly, he denied having any recent convos with fans like that. So where does the truth lie? Maybe he was being honest about that. I mean, how are we supposed to know? Ultimately, this is a really bad look for Heidi, in my personal opinion. Man, you hurt yourself more than anyone else. You're crazy. I'm done with this. I mean, people are not taking very well to what Heidi had to say here. People were posting gifs, I can't find it right now, but people were posting gifs like, you damn played yourself. This is not a good look. This is everything she posted here basically implicates herself as being an accessory to the problem and somebody who is manipulating a situation in her favor. I don't think any of these tweet replies in her defense to what Holly said previously helped her whatsoever. In fact, I think they hurt Heidi's case in the long run. That's where we stand currently in this entire ProJared love triangle debacle that never seems to end, and I'm interested to see where it goes next. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing.